The history of the Polish investment fund market dates back to the early 1990s. But the breakout year for the market was 1997, when the Investment Fund Act came into force. How has the investment fund industry changed over the past 30 years? What lies ahead? Today, my guest is Rafał Lis, founder and managing partner at CVI, a leading private debt investor in the CE region. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
So let's start with maybe short, as far as it's possible, a short summary of this 30 years. What happened on the market, what we can actually think of as a success, and what can be improved for the further development? Any milestones?
It's quite a broad question, I would say. It's a lot of happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you said, it's over 30 years now. And I would say that the beginnings were quite fascinating and quite dynamic. It was a time that just capital market in Poland started, and there was a boom market on the equity side, and people also were interested in investment funds. So there was only one then, and very, very popular. And then was a crash. So also it influenced on the only investment funds. But I think that the idea of investing through commingled vehicle, so pooling money of a number of investors and investing on behalf of them, started then. And I think that it was good education.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, there was a small revolution in 97. There was new legislation, and the new funds companies started to operate. So I think that market developed quite gradually. There was another milestone, so-called Belka tax. And actually, because of this new taxation system, there was some privileges to save through investment funds, and we observed multiplication of the size of the market until around 2007, and then we have another crash, GFC, and actually GFC was a disaster for equity market, and also unfortunately it influenced a lot on the investment side, because on the investment funds, because there was a huge amount of outflows, and a lot of people actually realized that it's quite risky. It's quite risky to invest, especially through mixed funds or through equity funds. And then market started to recover, and I think it is in this stage right now. So I would say that over 30 years we had a lot of changes, and we had quite a dynamic growth for some time, but also we experienced number of more difficult situations, cases, and so I would say that I'm really glad that we have pretty developed investment funds markets with hundreds or even thousands of funds. We have very wide product offering to the client. I think that we could easily find dozens or even more interesting investment proposition across asset classes, on the equity, on the fixed income, commodity, alternatives, etc. However, on the other side, I think that the biggest disappointment is that investment funds market actually, they do not play significant role in the economy. Mm-hmm. So the allocation of the savings among individual investors towards investment funds is quite tiny. I would say it few times lower, not only to US, which traditionally is very big capital market, but also to Western European countries. So it is, I would say, on one side, it could be treated as a disappointment. On the other side is opportunity
to grow. But why do you think it's like this in Poland? It's a matter of education, a matter of trust, a matter of awareness.
Of course, everything plays a role. And I personally think that we could do much more on the education side. And something like capital market, investment, savings, it could be introduced much earlier in the education system, and of course it could be helpful how to manage your savings, how to save for your retirement, how to save for some other reasons. So
that will be a growing need for the retirement, especially.
Exactly. So from this perspective, I think that education is a missing part. On the other side, I think that unfortunately regulations didn't help, and the one case I mentioned, the tax belka in 2002, it was something what was really helpful. But since then, I would say that most of other actions initiated by the regulatory system or by the government, they were not helpful. So other actions initiated by government, like killing the old pension system, it influenced a lot on the sentiment, and it influenced even more on the trust among individuals to the state to the state savings, like pensions. So apart from the regulatory issues, of course, the sentiment on the stock exchange influenced a lot. And usually, if we observe something like 2-3 years of very good performance of the stock exchange, then it is fueling the other parts of the financial market, like investment funds market. And unfortunately, Polish stock exchange was not one of the best performing markets during last 10 years or so. So also the interest in the investment funds was a little bit limited. But again, I think that something what was a challenge, it could be an opportunity. So from this perspective, I truly believe that the economic performance of Poland was very, very good during last 30 years.
Quite a success story.
Yes, exactly. We didn't observe the same success on the capital market, on the stock exchange, or on the investment funds market. But I think that it creates a lot of opportunities in the future. And something what I decided in my actual professional role is development of the so-called private markets. Private markets means that we are not investing through regulated stock exchanges, but we are financing companies directly. And it means that it is a way actually how to overcome the problem with the regulated markets, because we could offer financing to the thousands of corporations in Poland, not only the large one, biggest one quoted on the stock exchange, but also mid companies. And it means that it is definitely much easier for us to expose clients' money on the Polish economy, because it's not only limited to companies which are on the stock exchange, usually state-owned, not always very well managed. So in this way, actually, I could expose on risk of the real Polish economy, and it is a way how our investors could participate in this. It is not only the Polish trend. We could observe similar trends in other markets, in Western Europe, even in US. These days is even more difficult to access banking system to finance their development needs, and the need for alternative like non-banking financing, like private debt, as I mentioned, is something what is really needed. And from this perspective, it is a great opportunity actually to finance great projects in Poland or across the region, and also at the same time to provide very good returns to investors. So it is, I would say, it brings a lot of satisfaction.
So you observe that since the introduction in your company of those instruments, you see the growing need and the growing appetite, both from the investor's perspective, but also from the company operating on the Polish or the CE market, to actually give a try and go that way.
Definitely yes, especially on the economy side. So it means that we observe the need for alternative financing is definitely bigger now than used to be a few years ago. On average, we receive around 1,000 queries per year for financing. Of course, most of them, they are not fitting investment strategy of our funds, but still we were able, for example, to finance over 100 products per year. So I think that yes, we are creating sort of change, and we are able actually to finance something what otherwise could be not financed and not happened even. So from this perspective, yes, definitely there is a need for such role. On the other side, I believe, or not only believe, because we have over 10 years history, so I am sure that we were able to deliver very good returns for investors, and I am pretty sure that almost all our investors are pretty happy with the returns we will deliver it. Of course, risk adjusted. So it means that that there was a possibility to earn more, but probably taking significantly more risk. But within our category, our asset class, like fixed income, we're able to deliver very good returns. The issue or the challenge is that I mentioned regulatory system, and regulatory system currently is not very friendly to so-called alternative funds. So the biggest challenge we have is access to distribution, because currently alternative funds are distributed only in non-banking channels. And in Poland, non-banking channels like wealth management or independent brokerage houses, it is pretty tiny part of the market. So it means that we are sure, as I said, that we are able and we deliver at very good returns, but have an access to very limited part of the market. And probably it will take another few years that banks will re-enter to this market, because banks used to do it. However, probably their compliance system were not so tight, and unfortunately there were a few scandals. And instead of managing the product compliance system, they decided actually to quit from this market. So for last 5 years or so, we were able only to attract clients in non-banking channels. But as I said, I hope that it will change, and we will be able to deliver products also to much wider audience.
I have two questions to what you said to your product. If you look at the portfolio of your companies that you help to gain capital, is it any particular sector or any aim of the funding that they need? Of course, I'm talking also about ESG and the fact that we are a little bit in the transition period in many aspects. And then the second question also on the side of investors, if you could give any more specific image of who is your average investor, also in terms of maybe of the source of the capital.
So starting with the with the first question.
Yeah, with the companies.
With the companies, I think that we are so-called sector agnostic. So
Okay.
it means that our motto is, or mission is, that we try to fund every good project. Regarding ESG, I would say that green transformation is something what is probably a little bit too capital intensive for us. So we are not able to finance a big energy projects. Our average ticket is something like 5-7 million euro, up to 20, I would say, but still 20 million euro in energy transformation is not big. However, when you have a company and energy transformation or for related areas is part of their capex, yes, surely we could finance it. Regarding the kind of needs we are financing, again, it's quite a broad category. It could be capex, it's probably quite common, but also it could be a working cap, especially if there is a certain limit on banking financing and company is growing truly fast. So their need to finance working cap is also significant, and we could do it faster, definitely faster than banks. On top of this, something what we like, and there is a clear gap, is M&A. So especially for mid-corp, for big companies, finding good terms for acquisitions, financing from banking system, it's not so difficult. However, if we are talking about a smaller tickets, then the competition is very limited. Also, cross-border transactions. Again, for the Polish bank, financing acquisition in other markets is not so common story. We have Polish development funds who is trying to help. We have BGK Bank who is trying to help in such situation, but again, it's pretty limited in size. It's not so easy to access. So from this perspective, M&A and especially cross-border M&A for Polish corporations is something what we like and we do quite often.
And it's growing.
And it's growing, yes. And second question was about investors.
Average investors.
And it depends, because we started with fundraising among local individual investors, mainly affluent, high net worth individuals, but it was local investors base. And still, regarding Poland, we are focusing on high net worth. To some extent, it is because of the regulations, again, because there is for non-public closed-end investment funds, which we are using as a vehicle, the minimum is 40,000 euro. So it creates, not so big, but it creates certain barriers. So I think that it is our main type of investor. On average, it is half a million zloty, maybe million zloty. It's probably the average size. But for some time, we are trying to attract international money. So we started a project in 2018 to create a fund focused on international institutional investors. Finally, we closed this fund last year with 130 million euro. And we are able to attract a few, especially mission-oriented investors like EBRD, EIF, but also Polish development funds, also some pension funds and insurance companies from the region, and few family offices. So it was a first case that we were not focused on local investors, but trying to go beyond. The fund is already in 75% invested. Probably within a few months we invest whole fund, and then we will try to attract new investors, or also same investors to the new fund. So so hopefully we will be able to attract German insurance companies or UK pension funds or US pension funds to do or to finance Polish mid-corps through private debt. So hopefully it is, I'm sure that it is possible, and you should ask me within 1 or 2 years how it went.
I will, but now I will ask you about the lessons learned from this journey, especially how it was in the contact with the international investors. What's their perception on Poland? Because we often learn that something we know here in Poland doesn't really appear in the international press, and I know that the level then on the knowledge is limited. And of course, we know that we have this success story, on economic success story. It should be the driver also in terms of the investment. In 2018, of course, we also had this upgrade from being emerging market to developed, which also had some impact on it should. But what's the reality?
I would comment that not so many heard about our upgrade. And the reality is that our private debt focus on Poland or Central Europe was first such investment proposition in other markets, in developed markets. So before us, of course, there were a number of funds focused on private equity. There were few funds focused on so-called mezzanine financing. There were a number of successful funds focused on real estate. So in these areas, in these asset classes, a lot of happened already. But regarding private debt, our proposition was first. So, it was a lot about learning curve and education. We were able to meet with over 100 investors and describe how it works. The problem is that for them, it is just one potential investment in Poland, and they have to spend enormous amount of time and resources actually to enter the new market. And when they were asking how much more they could earn in comparison to Germany or to France or to UK, the premium is not so big. I would say that I could provide probably 200 basis points, maybe 300 basis points premium over the Western European market. And it was not so tempting for them. Again, our private debt market is quite limited, so it means that our funds, even if it could be bigger, not necessarily 130, maybe 300, for a lot of them, it was still too small. It's too tiny market. They are interested in some funds where they could invest alone like 500 or billion, and it's not our case.
Okay.
So from this perspective, probably we are still a little bit too small for most of the international investors, but again, not for all of them. So coming back to your question, I could fully agree that Poland is an interesting place from the economic perspective, and nobody was trying to challenge it. And I think that, again, private markets is creating an opportunity to have an access for this economy, what is sometimes more difficult through public markets dominated by state-owned companies. So again, it was interesting, but on the other side, we are still a little bit tiny, and I think that they need more benchmarks or more track record.
Okay, so my last question will be about the future. So how do you see, I don't know what type of time forecast we can make actually with this, so many uncertainties on the market and events that happened even recently that were not expected, but 5-year, 10-year perspective, how do you see the growth of the industry?
I have to be optimistic, and I am optimistic. I think that all the challenges actually we will try to treat as an opportunity, and there are a few of them. On the local side, I truly hope that we would be able to open distribution channels. It means that in one way, independent wealth management or brokerage houses will be able to grab much bigger market share, because they could offer definitely much more interesting product offering to local investors, and there will be a sort of movement from private banking to independent wealth management companies, family office, etc. So it is one thing, because definitely we believe that it is a way that we could explain more easily to the investors our story. What are the risks associated with our investment strategy, and eventually what could they expect on the return sides. So it is one thing. Another thing is I believe that we will be able to attract international money also to this asset class in the same way, for example, what happened on the real estate side, where it is dominated by the international investors. Yes. So I hope that maybe I don't want to create a domination position. However, I really hope
balanced position.
Exactly. And number of billions of euro could come here and to help us to finance local needs. And the third thing, I hope that the priorities of the regulatory system will be a little bit different. So not only trying to forbid everything what could create any risk, but also to think how to help the local capital markets, local investment fund market to grow, to provide the ideas and the products offering to much wider audience than it's happening right now.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I think that the summary would be that definitely the challenges create opportunities, and let it be, the good forecast for the future. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you very much.